Chris, what is our first main topic today?
Our first topic comes from Shaun Beatty. Hi, John and crew. Been watching since I was 15, back during the AMC days.
Wow.
Anyway, my question is if studios will start adapting video games more accurately after the success of The Last of Us. Some scenes are an exact one-to-one remake, same outfits, dialogue, cinematography, etc. Compare this to other adaptations such as Uncharted and Halo, which weren't received well by fans due to them doing their own thing, just using that game's IP. Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. This is obviously going to be a topic, a question that comes up. Like, look, whenever something does well, we as fans, I've gotten caught up in this too. All of you have too. We as fans go, everything must be like that now. As soon as one thing works or goes well, we're like, everything should be like that. And I get that. So the question with The Last of Us coming out and being so unbelievably fantastic is, well, I mean, look, this Last of Us Episode 1 took some liberties, but it also felt very, very, very true to the game, even though it did both. And where they took liberties, they elevated the content in its adaptation for the screen. So now the question becomes, is this proof that the studio should look at doing more faithful adaptations of the video games? And my answer to that is not necessarily. Because not every game has the story of The Last of Us. We've talked for a while about the fact that, I've said for a long time that there are, on one hand, I can count the number of video games that truly have what I believe is cinematic potential. Like it as they are without adaptation. And one of those has been The Last of Us. I've been saying that for a long time. I think it's the greatest story ever told in video games. There's that. There was a comedian that once said, and I'm only repeating what a comedian said, please do not take offense to this, anybody, that said, somebody asked me once, how much makeup should women wear? To which I replied, it depends on how ugly they are, right? Oof. That is applicable to to video game adaptations. Should other video game adaptations be kept as quote unquote faithful as Last of Us did? Well, no, because there's going to be some games that really do require more adaptation if they're going to work well in a translation to the screen. And then there's going to be some, like The Last of Us, that in its very DNA, it's very rare, but in its very DNA was a story that was just as it is, will work as a narrative storytelling form on a big or small screen. So it's almost like, to me, Rob, the question about runtime. How long should a movie be? We often say, well, it depends on the movie. Some movies have their perfect sweet spot at 90 minutes, and any longer than that is too long. Some movies have their perfect sweet spot at 3 hours. Any shorter than that would be. It all depends on the movie. And so in asking the question, should studios be more faithful in their translations to the game? It depends on the game. Some of them need more adaptation. Some of them need more translation. And some, like Last of Us, I'm going to guess God of War, maybe a Red Dead Redemption, need a little bit less adaptation. So it depends. I don't know, Rob, how would you address that?
Well, I think any adaptation really has to contain the spirit of what it is that it's adapting. We've seen a lot of the first thing that popped into mind when you're talking about this is the movie The Running Man with Schwarzenegger and Richard Dawson. That movie bears no resemblance to Stephen King's original novel, which he wrote under the pen name Richard Bachman. You could remake that book. You could take the Running Man book and shoot the book, and people wouldn't change the name. People wouldn't even know that the Running Man was the same. They wouldn't know. I mean, this is nothing like the book. So when I saw Uncharted was the very first video game I ever played where I felt that the story was as compelling as the gameplay. And I was like, we're really moving into a new age. When we all went and saw Uncharted, I didn't like it. I didn't think they did a very good job at adapting that game at all.
You going to tolerate that, Ray? You going to put up with that?
Beginning with, I understand why they cast Tom Holland.
To be fair, though, those trailers, either those were bad trailers or those were very honest trailers for what you were getting in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Right. But I when I sat there and watched that film, I thought to myself the whole time, I'm like, why did they choose to adapt that this way? And I get it. You've got You get Mark Wahlberg and you get Tom Holland. I guess that was, I mean, that's not Nathan Drake. That's a kid. He is dressed like Nathan Drake, but he's a kid. He's not Nathan Drake. And the movie didn't feel anything like the wonder, like the game designs and the wonder of all that. And I think that I understand where they were trying to go with it, but it didn't really work. And it should have been a game that made, or a movie that made $500 million worldwide. I mean, it didn't do badly, but I think that they didn't adapt the spirit of the game itself. You didn't get the feel of anything like it was what it was like to play the game.
Now, on the flip side of that coin, and I think Chris will back me up with this, let's take another video game adaptation that was, frankly, nothing like the game. Sonic. Sonic was nothing like the game.
But it's a love letter to it.
But it is a love letter to it, but they adapted. They took that property and said, okay, as it is, you can't make a movie out of this. But if we adapt it, you use the word spirit.
Yes.
You adapt it, make it completely different, but take the spirit of it. And they made Sonic, I think it's fair to say, obviously not everybody loved the Sonic movies, but I think it's fair to say a good majority of us were delighted by the Sonic
and
movies.
those people are entitled to their very wrong opinion. This movie is delightful.
It was like, so some movies maybe should be a little bit more, and some should be a little bit less.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about I don't think that the Sonic game had the kind of narrative structure that Uncharted
But that's the point, right?
Right.
It depends on, and even a game like Uncharted, I would argue, still needed some significant adaptation, but
Sure.
But it all depends on the game.
But I think, though, that the character of Sonic, we all understand. I think we understand going into a Sonic movie that there isn't a real narrative like for a movie that we're used to that Sonic could possibly be in if you're a fan of the game. But what they did was they took that character, the character of Sonic, they put him in a totally different kind of a narrative. But like you said, you recognize that was Sonic. It's like, that is Sonic, to the point where they had to redesign him to make the spirit more because fans complained. And I think that it's amazing the Sonic movies, both of them actually, are as good as they are, considering where they came from. I mean, that could have been like, imagine making a Pac-Man movie.
Which I think somebody is developing a Pac-Man movie, as a matter of fact. Anyway, Chris, let's go over to you. Like, the question is, with Last of Us, which is, take some liberties, but it's pretty damn faithful. Right down to the texture of the wallpaper on the wall in Joel's apartment. Should all games strive to be that faithful, or should all movies and TV shows based on video games strive to be that faithful? Or I don't know, how do you see it?
No, but all adaptations should strive to be respectful and loving of their source material, because that's what works for Sonic. Is you have these beautiful Easter eggs, you have some sound effects, you have some music, you have all of these things that you can pull right from the game, ringtones that are used, and you go, oh my gosh, these people love Sonic. It's kind of like when you watch something like a Velma, where you go, do these people like animation? The animators who were involved in that show, I think, did an incredible job. The writers, there are some moments where you go, do you like this source material and do you like this medium? Feels like you don't. And when we look at things too, like comic books that have been translated, Watchmen is a almost panel for panel in some parts adaptation, and it didn't translate well. So it really just depends on how you can utilize the medium to your advantage to still stay truthful to the story, but do that storytelling well. And I think The Last of Us is doing a really great mix of that. And I hope moving forward, people who do come to these projects just have that respect for it and go, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to translate it, and I'm going to do a few things my way, but I'm going to make sure that these fans still like it too.
I mean, it also comes down to like something I say all the time: winning cures everything, right? Because here's what I think, is I like what you brought up there about being respectful of things. Here's what it is. If you could get two filmmakers that each equally respect the source material, and one makes one that's a good movie and one makes one that's a bad movie, we as fans will say the one that made the bad movie wasn't respectful. And the one
That's
that
true.
it's all about winning. It's all about, did you make a good movie? Because if Sonic turned out badly, people, if you had the same Easter eggs and whatever, but it didn't have that heart and the charm that they were able to create, we would say they weren't respectful of the source material. But it was charming and wonderful and fun. So we say that it is. Again, we and I include myself in this, we as film fans are very, very fickle sometimes. But winning cures everything, losing exasperates things, it seems like. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The Last of Us is an absolute triumph. And part of that reason is because they took a story that translates really damn well and they stayed really faithful to it. But does that mean all of them should, or do some of them need more heavy adaptation than others? Whatever you guys think about that, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions, when the actual total is closer to $200. If you don't know exactly how much you're spending every month, you need Rocket Money. When I started using Rocket Money, I couldn't believe how many things I was still paying for. Anna and I haven't lived in Burbank for almost 2 years, and I didn't realize I was still paying for a gym membership in Burbank for 2 years. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills, all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions that they've forgotten about, like that streaming service you bought to watch just one show on, or that free trial that you never even used, or like me, a gym membership in Burbank. Simply find the subscriptions you don't want and press cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/Campea. That's rocketmoney.com/Campea.